for me?
Yes.
Well, hi everybody. It's Dr. Hillary here, and I'm here with Kelly. Wait, I was just gonna say, how do I say your last name?
The book. It's a tricky one. Kelly.
It's beautiful. And Kelly just finished up our fall detox, and she had done our spring detox before, and we're talking about kind of why detox and what happens after you have a detox experience. I think Kara and I talk about it a lot, but I think when people are hearing it from doctors, it's sort of like me, and it's more interesting when you hear from somebody who goes through an experience and learns a couple things about their body. It's more compelling to consider doing. And I just believe it's one of the foundations for medicine to help us sort of reset and realign a few times a year. And so this is your second one. So tell me, just give me a little bit of insight of some of your experience.
Sure. So I was always nervous to do a cleanse because when you think a cleanse, you think of really kind of like starving yourself or just having liquid shakes and very small portions. And I do like to work out and have energy. So I feel like I do need to eat. And I was so pleasantly surprised with the one in the spring, where you're not really depriving yourself of stuff, you're just eating super clean. So, although very challenging to cut out the caffeine, the dairy, I don't really eat a lot of sugar or gluten, but I do have a lot of yogurt, and I love my coffee in the morning. Those were really big challenges, and I was nervous going into it, but I feel like both you and Dr. Stephanie, each with the WhatsApp test, the morning meditation, these Zoom calls, made everyone feel really comfortable about where you're at. And I liked how we could ease into it. I would have a little bit of green tea just to help me with the caffeine, probably 3 days into it. Um, and I think if I didn't have the opportunity to have that, I would have had headaches and probably failed. Um, so,
Yeah, the one thing, like, I think people think, sorry to interrupt, but
oh,
the first thing to address is that there isn't like a great word, I feel like, to interest people in this process, like the word detox or the word cleanse. Like, I don't know, they're very like, we can't figure out what to say. So that's part of it.
mhm.
But it is like a reset where we're trying to get people to get off the things that we use all the time, that we eat or consume all the time, to make sure that they're actually like working for us. We don't actually know until we take a break from some of the main potential triggers for one, illness, or two, just symptoms or sleep issues or hormone dysregulation or weight gain, things like sugar, caffeine, dairy, gluten, and just processed foods in general. So we're asking people to take a break from those things to see like what happens to you when you're not doing those things. And yeah, we never want people to go cold turkey off of caffeine because you feel terrible. It's an addictive substance. You want to wean down. So I'm super glad you did that. There's always people who are like, they don't believe us. I'm like, no, you do get a headache. Most people do get a headache. You don't need to feel bad. The concept is not to feel bad, not to like punish you, to be healthy, but to feel good all the way through it. So what are some of your takeaways if you take away caffeine or
Yeah. So, I mean, I think so. The detox just ended Thursday, and I haven't had any dairy since then. I felt a big change just with like my bloating, not cutting out the dairy. And it just also made me aware, like, sometimes if I was on the go, I would grab like a protein bar, and it feels so good. I haven't had anything packaged. Um,
wow.
so, I mean, who knows how long it will last, but if I can keep the dairy out, and the processed food, out, I think I would continue to feel really great. I have gone back to my coffee, but the teas you recommend are so delicious. So the licorice one, this one I absolutely loved. Uh,
Awesome.
Fine immunity I have like in the afternoon. And still I drink the spring ones, the hibiscus and the nettle. So it's really helped me limit like my coffee in the morning to like 1 cup. And then I'm like, okay, either I start with the tea or I'm like 1 cup and go to the tea. So those are probably the three biggest changes for me, that I'm gonna try to continue with.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think that we when we start to use herbal medicines or herbal teas to augment what we do, it can really help us with our energy. It's just supportive, and I'm back to drinking my coffee too after the detox. It's I like it very I just love coffee, and so does Dr. Kara. And like so we go back, but it sort of keeps us in check with like the more abusive pattern where it's like have two or three, or you start to learn like, okay, I'm good with one, and then if I drink and hydrate and use herbal teas, my sleep's not as impacted. Did you notice a change in your sleep when coffee was out, or not so much?
So I definitely sleep pretty well. I did notice that I wasn't. Sometimes I'll wake up, and I remember on one of the Zoom calls, I thought it was really interesting, and I may not remember this exactly right, but between 1 and 3 in the morning, you said it was maybe your liver or four.
Mhm.
No, I forget.
That's right. It's
I
right.
used to wake up between 1 and 3 and have some trouble falling back to sleep. And I did notice I was sleeping more soundly through, and I wasn't as anxious. I love the taste of coffee, but I do find it makes me very anxious and jittery. Um, and then I would wake up in the middle of the night and start thinking about like the million things I had to do the next day.
Yeah, and, like, when we do that long term, Kelly and I were just talking about, dementia prevention and Alzheimer's prevention, which is really impacting women 2 to 1, and so this is a big thing that we wanna look at, like, some of the risk factors that we know, influence Alzheimer's or dementia, both of them, is sleep deprivation over time, and so when we can change our night waking pattern from something that we do during the day, like that, it can make such a big difference on your long-term health. And going through perimenopause and menopause, there's a lot of sleep changes. Kelly, you're probably a little bit before that, but it's really interesting to look at some of the things that we do just habitually, or that are just sort of part of the American way of living or European way of living. I mean, a lot of times we justify some of the things we do because they do it in France, or they do it in, I drink red wine every night because they do it in France, or I drink coffee because they drink it in Spain and Italy. But it's when it's impacting our nervous system, like causing us anxiety, it's not necessarily the best thing. And some people, one of the things we do is like just eat a little food before you have coffee.
Yeah.
If you eat food before you have coffee, a lot of times it can make that anxiety better. But if that anxiety is continuing, then doing a Swiss water decaf coffee for the taste and getting your caffeine from green tea or using just herbal teas can sometimes be the switch that makes a big difference for what's happening at night. And we want our patients, we just want the world to be sleeping through the night. It matters. Nothing good happens between 1 and 3 in the morning, or really between midnight and 6 a.m. Like, no good decisions are made. Nothing's good. Nothing good is thought about. Like, it's not a good time for human beings to be like productive. They need to be resting. How about what foods did you eat more of on during the detox?
So I ate a ton of vegetables, and I loved all the creative recipes. I loved like the butternut squash, one with like the nuts and the tomatoes, and I did that with zucchini noodles. I just got more creative. Took the time to like do beets and stuff that normally I wouldn't take the time to do, which reminded me how much I love those foods. And cutting down on the yogurt was a little hard for me because I got a lot of my protein through that. So I was eating more chicken, and I cut out eggs, so I didn't have protein through that. But I still felt like I was energized and getting enough through like the ate a ton of pears. I was so happy you recommended pears for the fiber and the gut, because that's another fruit where I hadn't had in so long, but I loved, and I'm gonna keep, eating the pears.
I love pears. I think pears are one of the, like, under the not they're not used enough, like, and especially in the fall, they're so good, and so much fiber comes in a pear.
Yeah,
Yeah, good, I'm glad, and coming up is persimmon season. I love the orange persimmons. The have
yeah,
you do you guys get the ones that are Fuji's that they look like apples? They're
yeah,
really good for
love
really
it too.
low glycemic and good. Yeah, I think that there's just this whole thing that a lot of times when we make space and time to eat healthy, which is what you're doing when you're joining a program, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. You start to just remember that you like to cook. Remember that you like to do things a little differently. Remember, oh my gosh, I love butternut squash. I forgot that I could just roast it really easily and add it to a salad, and that's delicious. And it just takes you out of your sort of the ruts that we get into as women or mothers, especially where we're like feeding our people, but we're the often the last one that we think about.
Definitely.
And I think that that's another interesting thing when we look at the illnesses that women get. Um, the dementia, Alzheimer's, obviously there's a big hormonal input that we think is going on, but I also wonder how much of it is the multitasking and the having multiple tabs open all the time in our head. We're like, this is this tab and this tab and this tab and this tab. And what I like about the detox is I find that women are taking time for themselves a little bit more and prioritizing their life.
100.
Um,
And I think also how you send out the daily meditations, because I did transcendental meditation a few years ago, loved it, was doing it routinely, and then just fell out of it. And then having those daily reminders sort of held me more accountable. And I forgot how good it feels just to start the day that way. And I think all the Zoom calls between the Epsom baths you were recommending, I finally tried the castor oil pack.
nice.
Which I'm like kind of obsessed with now.
That's awesome.
I
It's great for bloating,
out
right? Yeah.
spring, So um also all the vitamins that you recommend. I really like the GI gut powder. I felt like that really helped me. So I think between the self-care and taking the time to really invest in yourself, and all the stuff we learn is so beneficial.
Oh, I'm so happy. Yeah, well, if I love women. The next year we're focusing on the anti-inflammatory diet a little bit more. I mean, the diet that you've eaten on the past detoxes have been anti-inflammatory, but we want to really do more anti-inflammatory herbs. And as inflammation is the target for brain health, so we're really trying to work next year, January, April, October, on brain health and the brain gut connection. And our brain health is just so wildly important as women as we age. Like, I have patients who come to me and they're like, I can't remember this or I can't remember that. My doctor said it's just part of normal aging. I reject
Mhm.
that us losing any functionality is part of normal aging. I just reject it. I have too many patients that are in their 70s or even early 80s that are so functional and
Mhm.
doing so well that I reject that we just all sort of like,
I'm with you. I think it's crazy.
I think it's crazy. Like, let's like opt not to lose our function and like let's stay strong and get better and better. I mean, that's just what we're here to do. There's a lot of life to live. And for the dairy, I do want to just say it's really great to try to see, okay, what happens with goat cheese? What happens with sheep cheeses? What happens if I do the yogurt? A lot of times we have something that we like and then we just go to that all the time. And that's what the detox is great for. It like makes us do different
Great
things.
habit. Yes.
Makes us buy different things. A lot of us even now, like if we're ordering groceries, you're just literally ordering almost the same thing every week or however it is. Or if you're walking through the grocery store, you end up buying literally the same products almost every time. So it's good to mix it up. But with the dairy, it's good to just see if how much you can tolerate, if it's one time a week or two times a week. When you bring it back in, like does all the bloating come back? Is it truly not a food that works for you now in this time and space? Or can you do it more sporadically and not have the symptoms? Because it is nice to be able to have all things available to you. Just figure out like the timing of it.
Okay, that's a good tip.
Yeah, I do think that as we age, some dairy is beneficial, but
Oh,
not as much as we lean on it
right.
typically in our lives, right? Yeah.
That's helpful.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm really grateful and for, yeah, saying yes to showing up on our show
Thanks for having me.
and for saying yes to the detox, and we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Much
Bye.
love, Kelly. Bye.